Imagine a future king burdened by the weight of an entire empire's gaze, yet still navigating the clandestine corners of aristocratic romances and secret affairs. That's precisely the saga behind the newly crowned king, Charles III, a man whose private entanglements and whispered weekend rendezvous have been the subject of fervent speculation for decades. In the years before he assumed the throne, Charles wore many faces: royal duty, princely charm, and, according to myriad rumors, the role of a restless romantic entangled with an ever-growing list of beautiful and captivating women. In this video, we delve into 15 scandalous stories about King Charles III's hidden mistresses. Names you may recognize and others you've likely never heard whispered beyond the most obscure diaries and hushed-up society columns. These tales will take us deep into the decades when Charles was known more for his roving eye than his regal poise, when the monarchy struggled to contain secrets that could have shattered its polished veneer, and when Princess Diana's heartbreak cast a long, painful shadow over every rumor that surfaced. From the infamous Camilla Parker Bowles affair, complete with mortifying phone transcripts and humiliating leaks, to the mysterious fates of lesser-known companions like Dale Kanga Tryon or Lucia Santa Cruz, each chapter offers a jaw-dropping mix of betrayal, rivalry, and, in some instances, genuine passion. King Charles III's personal life has always been rife with rumor and innuendo, offering an abundance of secrets, clandestine connections, and tangled relationships that have, for decades, fueled tabloids, incited public outrage, and even threatened the stability of the British monarchy. The man now crowned as king was once a roving Prince of Wales, widely regarded as a romantic playboy who, famously or infamously, carried on an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles during his marriage to Princess Diana. Yet the swirl of controversies around Charles did not stop with Camilla. Over the course of many years, the future king cultivated friendships, flirtations, and alleged affairs with numerous women, some of them aristocrats, others from more modest origins, still others from the world of celebrity and entertainment. In certain cases, these relationships took the form of impassioned emotional bonds that teetered at the precipice of scandal. In others, they were fleeting entanglements that left behind a haze of rumor and heartbreak. We know some of these women by name, while others remain hidden behind pseudonyms or sly references in tabloid stories and royal biographies, their true identities speculated about but never confirmed. It is difficult to separate fact from myth in these matters, as the House of Windsor has historically been adept at cloaking personal dramas behind the gilded veneer of royal ceremony. Even so, leaked phone calls, whispered dinner party chatter, and the statements of close acquaintances, and in some instances the women themselves, have collectively painted a mosaic of King Charles's romantic life that is as labyrinthine as it is captivating. His story is one of duty clashing with passion, of a monarchy straining under the weight of modern media scrutiny, and of a man seemingly torn between personal desires and public obligations. The tension inherent in that life fueled a long trail of sensational headlines, from Camillagate and Tampon-gate to revelations about the deep frustrations and jealousy experienced by Diana. And behind each major scandal emerged other names, quieter but no less intriguing, whose roles in Charles's private world underscored his restless quest for emotional fulfillment. We now explore, in detail, these 15 scandalous stories involving King Charles III's hidden mistresses, weaving them together into a tapestry that illuminates not just the salacious dimension of royal life, but also the psychological toll and heartbreak that plagued both Charles and the women who entered his orbit. In so doing, we reflect on the monarchy's struggle to contain controversies that threatened its image, on the public's enduring fascination with betrayal and romance, and on Charles's own path, from reckless prince to ascendant king, carrying forward old baggage and fresh hopes of redeeming his name. Yet overshadowing each chapter of this saga is the poignant question: can a man whose romantic escapades cause so much personal and public pain truly move beyond the ghosts of his past and usher the crown into an era of trust and respect? The first story inevitably begins with the most infamous liaison of all, Camilla Parker Bowles. Their love affair stands at the center of Charles's personal drama and casts a long shadow over every subsequent connection he formed. The duo's first meeting traces back to the early 1970s in the swirl of aristocratic parties and polo matches that formed the prince's social life. Camilla, then known by her maiden name Camilla Shand, was witty, charming, and unafraid to spar verbally with Charles, who found in her a companion able to match his sense of humor and intellectual curiosity. It was a spark that quickly turned into a flame. The trouble was, Charles was duty-bound to find a suitably virginal, aristocratic bride who met the monarchy's strict standards. Camilla, for her part, was about to marry Andrew Parker Bowles. Their early relationship did not, however, evaporate in the face of these obligations. Behind the scenes, they remained emotionally intertwined. This emotional bond remained an open secret in their social circle, but it remained out of the broader public's awareness for many years, until the explosive revelations of the 1990s introduced the entire planet to the details of their pillow talk. Indeed, that next revelation, famously dubbed Camillagate, or sometimes the Camilla tapes, erupted in 1992, unleashing a torrent of calls between Charles and Camilla so intimate and explicit that many listeners were left blushing. The media latched onto the strangest snippet, a moment in which Charles, lost in affectionate banter, fantasized about being reincarnated as Camilla's tampon so as to remain close to her. This moment, widely known as Tampon-gate, became an immediate reference point for comedic routines, savage editorial cartoons, and scathing think pieces that collectively hammered home how out of sync the monarchy could be with the sensibilities of a nation who had revered Princess Diana. For Diana, who already suspected Camilla's central place in Charles's affections, the tapes were the final blow, publicly confirming that her marriage was overshadowed by a third participant. It was Diana's heartbreaking admission. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded, that would forever define the narrative around Charles, Camilla, and the people's princess. Nothing could overshadow that raw confession of pain. The second story concerns a figure who rarely surfaces in mainstream recollections, Dale Kanga Tryon. Known for her vivacious spirit, flamboyant social presence, and rumored bohemian escapades, Kanga was, in the mid-1970s and 1980s, considered a close companion of Charles. She was witty, flamboyant, and found acceptance in the same circles as the prince. Gossip columns speculated that their easy camaraderie masked a deeper relationship, especially when the two were spotted traveling or attending events together without their respective spouses. For Kanga, who faced personal battles with her mental health and addiction, the rumored romance with Charles added a bittersweet note to her life, overshadowing whatever achievements she might have garnered on her own. Her tragic passing in 1997, reportedly while still quite young, created an aura of mystery around their bond. Was she just a friend the prince tried to help? Or was the story more complicated? The royal establishment predictably has kept that question unanswered. The third storyline meanders back to Charles's earliest flirtations in the late 1960s. or early 1970s. Among the swirl of names is that of Lucia Santa Cruz, sometimes cited as one of his first serious girlfriends. It was Lucia, ironically enough, who is said to have introduced Charles to Camilla. The comedic dimension is undeniable. This youthful affair that might have blossomed on its own ended up overshadowed by Charles's immediate fascination with someone else. Lucia, by all accounts, an intelligent and cultured presence, with a gift for bridging the aristocracy and the creative bohemia, drifted from the prince's life, leaving behind the sense that she was a stepping stone to the far more infamous liaison that would shape decades of scandal. Even so, Lucia stands as a figure highlighting that Charles's romantic entanglements were never purely about physical attraction. He sought intellectual or comedic synergy, presumably finding in these women attributes he felt he lacked in his official, buttoned-up existence as the future king. Then there is the matter of Anna Wallace, sometimes humorously nicknamed Whiplash Wallace, whom Charles briefly became engaged to in the early 1980s. Her spirited personality clashed with Charles's ongoing emotional commitment to Camilla, leading to a swift and humiliating dissolution of the engagement. Anna Wallace's name might be less iconic than that of Camilla or Diana, but her significance lies in how her story illustrates the repeated pattern in Charles's romantic history. A woman drawn in by the prince's charm, only to discover that his heart or mind was still fixated on another. The news of Anna's broken engagement sparked ephemeral tabloid mania, overshadowed in subsequent years by bigger fiascos. Yet her experience stands as an emblem of heartbreak among those who attempted to form a life with a man who always seemed on the brink of returning to Camilla's side. Additionally, it reveals the monarchy's constant vigilance in trying to find Charles a suitable bride who would quell the swirling rumors and stabilize his emotional life, a quest that, as we know, ended only half successfully with the selection of Lady Diana Spencer. Equally short-lived but still noteworthy is the relationship Charles had with Davina Sheffield, a name that surfaces in certain royal biographies from the 1970s. Davina was another aristocratic figure who might, in an alternate universe, have become the princess consort. The comedic friction arose because the press insisted that Charles's abiding connection to Camilla overshadowed everything, leading to a meltdown of these budding relationships. The pattern repeated with Lady Jane Wellesley, daughter of the Duke of Wellington, whose romance with Charles was rumored to border on seriousness, but never crossed that threshold, possibly for the same reasons. Each new name underscores that, for all the talk of Charles's roving eye, the gravitational pull of Camilla and the monarchy's complicated environment often truncated these romances before they grew. The seventh story might be the outcry from Princess Diana herself, who famously confronted Camilla at a 1989 party, telling her, "I know what's going on." This revelation depicts not just a comedic confrontation, but a deeply painful moment for a young woman who recognized that her marriage was overshadowed by another love from the start. The conflict that followed, culminating in the humiliating dissolution of Diana and Charles's marriage, remains one of the monarchy's greatest PR disasters. The entire meltdown catalyzed the monarchy's reevaluation in the modern era. That meltdown also forced the public to consider how a love triangle, typically relegated to tabloids, had become the focus of global attention. Perhaps it was the intangible aura of Diana that commanded so much sympathy. She was not merely a scorned wife, but a mother, a humanitarian, a figure singled out for her authenticity. Against that measure, Charles looked callous, and Camilla looked conspiratorial, fueling a wave of condemnation that endured for years. Next arises the Tampon-gate, the comedic fiasco that overshadowed all else, the leaked phone calls from the early 1990s, in which Charles expressed an uncomfortably explicit wish to be one of Camilla's intimate hygiene products, became the stuff of legend. The comedic undertones clashed with the monarchy's once impervious facade, yielding savage satirical cartoons, jokes, and comedic allusions that no press officer could successfully quell. This scandal forcibly stripped the monarchy of any illusions of an untouchable, dignified sphere. The comedic references overshadowed the real heartbreak that lay beneath. A future king so starved for emotional closeness that he'd voice such a bizarre, unwavering devotion to a woman he was not free to publicly acknowledge as his rightful partner. The Tampon-gate calls remain a defining artifact of 1990s celebrity culture and a cautionary tale for future royals about the dangers of recorded intimate exchanges. We come then to rumored entanglements with figures like the actress Susan George, who in the late 1970s was rumored to have caught Charles's eye. The comedic friction that arises from a British star crossing paths with the prince, and the gossip that inevitably overshadowed any possibility of privacy, is telling. While never officially confirmed, the rumor of an affair with Susan George became another bullet point in Charles's reputation as a man whose personal attachments crisscrossed many social spheres, from Hollywood lights to aristocratic drawing rooms. The monarchy's standard approach, never complain, never explain, left such rumors to fester in tabloids, overshadowing official denials and fueling the public's insatiable appetite for royal secrets. Another name that sporadically arises is that of Caroline Longman, alleged by some accounts to have been an important figure in Charles's circle. Again, the lines between rumor and reality blur. Caroline moved in the same aristocratic gatherings. Over time, watchers of the monarchy concluded that Charles's deep emotional struggles with finding a single partner who could overshadow all others was complicated by his sense of duty. While he might have found genuine connections with these women, the specter of Camilla lingered, overshadowing any chance for a fully realized relationship. Thus, Caroline Longman joins the roster of women whose roles in Charles's life remain only partially documented, overshadowed by a central narrative. He was never truly free to love others as wholeheartedly as he was believed to have loved Camilla. The 10th narrative deals with the bold claims of Penny Junor, a seasoned royal biographer who alleged that the publicly known affairs barely scratched the surface. According to Junor, Charles was a prolific philanderer, weaving his way in and out of casual flings that remained hush-hush, thanks to the monarchy's formidable public relations apparatus. These allegations implied that the monarchy had done its utmost to conceal the prince's wide-ranging romantic pursuits. Some call Junor's claims overblown. Others suspect that her revelations align with a pattern of secrecy in Buckingham Palace that historically tamped down scandal. In any event, Junor's stance underscores how persistent the idea of other women has been in the narrative of Charles, overshadowing official denials and occasionally fueling comedic illusions, that he was unstoppable in his pursuit of extramarital excitement. Then we come to a surprising tie to Diana's own family, Charles's rumored fleeting interest in Sarah Spencer, Princess Diana's older sister. Before Diana came on the scene, Charles was said to have flirted or dated Sarah, a comedic twist that overshadowed the subsequent drama once he pivoted to her younger sister, culminating in the ill-fated wedding. The comedic allusions revolve around the notion that Charles was rummaging through the Spencer family, eventually picking the teenage Diana. That dynamic overshadowed the fact that Sarah herself was known for forthright talk and a refusal to remain discreet if cornered by tabloids. Historians note that Sarah's ephemeral link to Charles is overshadowed by the far bigger meltdown of his marriage to her sister. Yet this anecdote forms another curious thread in the tapestry of his romantic life. Next arises jealousy and rage, particularly that of Diana, who endured humiliations that would break even the strongest-willed spouse. The story of the bracelet that Charles gave Camilla, engraved with the initials F and G, standing for Fred and Gladys, their private nicknames, stands as a searing example that this token existed at all, overshadowing the newlyweds' illusions, underscored Charles's inability or unwillingness to sever emotional ties with Camilla. For Diana, discovering the bracelet was a heartbreak of immeasurable depth. She glimpsed in it not just evidence of an affair, but a cosmic sign that the monarchy's entire project of pairing her with Charles was overshadowed by a pre-existing love. She wrote in diaries, confiding her anguish to close friends, overshadowed by constraints that forbade her from openly calling out Camilla in the press. Ultimately, as we know, she did speak publicly, particularly in the infamous BBC Panorama interview, forever altering the monarchy's stance on such matters. The public backlash to Charles's revelations and eventual divorce from Diana formed the next chapter in this saga. The comedic illusions that once framed the monarchy as stable and dignified lay in shreds. Polls taken in the mid-1990s revealed that a significant portion of British citizens considered Charles unworthy of the throne, overshadowed by the luminous popularity of the People's Princess. Many believed that if Diana had not died so tragically in 1997, the monarchy might have faced deeper constitutional crises. The comedic illusions that had kept the monarchy afloat, pomp, tradition, unwavering deference, were overshadowed by a public outraged at the prince's betrayal. Protests erupted outside palace gates, tabloids hammered Charles daily, and comedic illusions about the monarchy's stiff upper lip turned sour. The entire House of Windsor staggered from the blow, struggling to contain the meltdown. Finally, we consider the rehabilitation efforts in the years that followed. By the time Charles married Camilla in 2005, a significant share of the public had softened. Some recognized that he and Camilla had a genuine bond, overshadowed by the monarchy's old guard refusal to let them wed decades earlier. Over time, as William and Harry grew up and found their own roles, Charles's comedic illusions gave way to a more subdued persona. He championed environmental causes, organic farming, interfaith dialogue, occasionally overshadowing the memory of his many affairs. Gradually, many subjects began to accept, albeit reluctantly, that Camilla was his life partner. The comedic illusions that once painted him as an irresponsible philanderer never fully vanished, but the monarchy's PR machine hammered away at rebranding him as a thoughtful philanthropic figure waiting to inherit the crown. In those final chapters, one sees the complexity of the monarchy's stance on redemption. For a man overshadowed by scandal, can a more measured, sober approach to public life truly overshadow the memory of heartbreak wrought upon Diana and the countless other women who had fleeting or enduring roles in his hidden romantic escapades? In 2022, when Queen Elizabeth II died and Charles ascended, he took on the name King Charles III. The comedic illusions that once enthralled or disgusted the public were overshadowed by the solemn pageantry of the funeral, and subsequently his coronation. Yet questions persisted. Does the monarchy's pivot to a new generation, with William and Catherine, overshadow the darker truths of Charles's past, or do they linger as part of the monarchy's institutional memory? For many watchers and critics, the final takeaway is that the monarchy endures by evolving. Charles in his advanced age, projects stability. Camilla, once the reviled other woman, is now queen consort, welcomed by courtiers who once scorned her. That comedic reversal stands as a testament to how drastically the monarchy can pivot. Yet behind the scenes, the same monarchy that once forced Charles to discard his youthful love in favor of Diana inadvertently set the stage for decades of romantic chaos, overshadowing the illusions of a fairy tale marriage with an open secret. Charles was in love with Camilla, come what may. So when we look upon these 15 scandalous stories, Camilla Parker Bowles and the leaked phone calls, Kanga Tryon's tragic downfall, Lucia Santa Cruz facilitating the introduction that spelled doom for many, Anna Wallace's heartbreak, Davina Sheffield's overshadowed role, Lady Jane Wellesley's ephemeral fling, Diana's public pain, the cringe-worthy Tampon-gate tapes, the rumored entanglements with Susan George or Caroline Longman, the claims from Penny Junor, Sarah Spencer's cameo in The Prince's Life, the lingering jealousy embodied in the F&G bracelet, the massive public backlash culminating in calls for Charles to relinquish his claim to the throne, and the final scramble to rehabilitate his image. It becomes clear that King Charles III stands not merely as a comedic footnote in the monarchy's line of succession, but as a living testament to the monarchy's capacity for scandal, reinvention, and survival. Each affair or rumored liaison underscores the tension between personal desire and public expectation, overshadowing illusions of regal moral uprightness. And in the end, we see a man who, for better or worse, exemplifies that tension in a single life story, one brimming with a kind of heartbreak, comedic irony, and improbable twists that define the British royal family in the modern era. So where does that leave us as outside observers? We watch the monarchy's ceremonials, the coronation, the walkabouts, and behind them, the memory of these scandalous liaisons. Some in the public can forgive, believing that Charles is an older man who found, at last, the partner he always needed in Camilla. Others remain outraged, seeing in the meltdown with Diana and the overshadowed heartbreak of multiple lovers an unforgivable pattern. Nonetheless, as the monarchy steps forward, King Charles III's romance with Camilla stands as proof of how far the institution has shifted from stony tradition. The third person in the marriage once despised is now enthroned at his side, and the numerous other women who once captured the prince's affection remain an echo of his wandering eye, overshadowed by the official narrative that now praises Charles and Camilla as a stable, if belated, love story. Public memory of King Charles III's clandestine liaisons is, to this day, a dynamic tapestry. Online forums continuously debate lingering rumors, while new documentary interviews feed a cyclical curiosity. Did the Prince of Wales turned king, over his decades in the public eye, engage in more hidden affairs than even the tabloids have reported? Beyond the famous few, Camilla, Anna Wallace, Dale Kanga Tryon, and others, there exists a persistent suspicion that entire chapters of his private romantic history remain concealed. Such speculation is hardly surprising. The British monarchy, especially during the later part of the 20th century, maintained a rigid code of secrecy to protect not just the crown's standing, but also the emotional well-being of its members. Unlike modern pop stars or politicians pressed to account for every slip, the Windsors historically invoked never complain, never explain. That approach created a mystique, a regal hush in which controversies might float, half revealed in hushed rumors. And ironically, that hush itself only heightens public fascination. The less the palace clarifies, the more people rummage for old columns, diaries, or half-credible testimony from fleeting acquaintances of the king. This tension between secrecy and curiosity has scarcely diminished even with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and the subsequent enthronement of Charles as king. If anything, the ascension, preceded by well-documented stress from Charles's earlier missteps, has reignited interest in the lesser-known corners of his personal life. Contemporary watchers point to Netflix's series The Crown, for instance, which dramatizes certain angles of the Charles-Diana-Camilla triangle, prompting a new generation of viewers to wonder, were there other women not quite rendered on screen? The monarchy's refusal to confirm or deny the more obscure entanglements only stokes that flame. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's revelations in his memoir Spare address some aspects of Charles's fatherly distance, his occasional emotional reticence, subtext that can be read as part of a larger pattern in Charles's approach to relationships. However, none of Harry's revelations delve into unsubstantiated lovers from decades gone by. For those fixated on unraveling Charles's hidden liaisons, there remain countless nooks and crannies to explore, from unverified rumor to borderline plausible leads in old tabloids. This abiding mystique is older than the digital age. Traditional royal reporting, exemplified by sources like Majesty Magazine or the older iteration of the Daily Express, referenced hush-hush weekends at country estates, cryptic sightings in remote corners of the English countryside, or ambiguous phone calls placed to Buckingham Palace after midnight. A typical piece might say, a certain aristocratic blonde was seen driving onto the Highgrove estate at 10 p.m., departing only at dawn. Official palace spokespeople would dismiss the tale. Years later, certain insiders or staff might recall glimpses of a clandestine arrival, but none was bold enough to speak on record. The code of secrecy remained unbroken. All that remains are elliptical references in diaries or private letters. A footman's scribbled note that the prince's friend arrived unannounced, or a snippet from a staffer testifying that supper for two was served after midnight. Contemporary attempts at gleaning the truth inevitably come up against decades of well-practiced stonewalling. Over time, the hush fosters more speculation. How many such friends were there, especially prior to Charles's official engagement to Lady Diana Spencer? Another factor fueling these suspicions is the monarchy's complicated approach to documenting or archiving personal records. One might imagine that diaries, letters, or phone logs could be systematically stored in royal archives, but such items are sealed for decades. Some watchers, referencing legal deposit requirements in the royal archives at Windsor, suspect that certain diaries or letters might remain under lock for up to a century, as per archaic data protection rules or monarchical prerogative. For instance, glimpses of diaries from 1978, a year overshadowed by rumors linking Charles to multiple socialites, would be a goldmine for historians. But no real clarity emerges. The monarchy's track record suggests those diaries, if they exist, will remain inaccessible until well after the principal figures have passed on. Moreover, high society on both sides of the Atlantic often forms a self-protecting web. In the era preceding widespread paparazzi culture, a discreet hostess or gentleman's club might orchestrate private dinners for a visiting royal. The entire staff was often bound to confidentiality by unspoken codes or direct NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. As the 1970s progressed, paparazzi grew bolder, but the monarchy had alliances with certain media moguls who would hold back truly scandalous stories for fear of losing palace access. The net result is that potential details of lesser-known affairs never saw print. Only the largest fiascos, like the phone call leaks or the confrontation with Diana, escaped the monarchy's iron grip. So, Whenever small references surface in diaries or minor gossip columns, the public leaps to interpret them as scraps of a hidden tapestry. This thirst intensifies the comedic illusions around monarchy as a fairy tale, overshadowing the heartbreak behind the scenes. Additionally, newly digitized archives from older tabloid publishers and second-tier newspapers can spark fresh debate. Researchers scanning troves of local British press from, say, 1973 or 1976 occasionally uncover cryptic lines. The Prince of Wales was seen at a private dinner in the company of Miss X with no elaboration. On modern message boards like the Royal Gossip Forum or Reddit threads, self-styled sleuths analyze these items, cross-referencing them with known events. Did Miss X appear in photos at a polo match a week later? Did Charles abruptly cut short a trip to Windsor the next day? The speculation weaves narratives that might or might not track reality. With the monarchy refusing to clarify, the rumored lover remains a question mark in a timeline overshadowed by comedic illusions of the Playboy prince. On the other end of the timeline, certain watchers pose a different question. Might Charles have had flings even after the worst of the Diana fiasco? Did any ephemeral romance occur between his 1996 divorce and his 2005 marriage to Camilla, overshadowed by the monumental media storms? If so, how did those women remain hidden in an era when paparazzi were more relentless than ever? Some propose that the monarchy's black or white approach to Camilla during that period overshadowed any impetus for Charles to risk a brand new entanglement. He was already dedicating enormous energy to rebranding Camilla from the other woman to the rightful partner. Still, the rumor mill churns. Certain tabloids from the early 2000s ran unverified pieces hinting at late-night rendezvous with a longtime friend of the royals. Though no names stuck, the monarchy's cloak of secrecy proves formidable indeed. Public memory also merges with more general skepticism about monarchy as an institution. For a segment of British society and observers worldwide, the monarchy's arc from the Diana tragedy to the present day is overshadowed by a sense that no real accountability existed for the heartbreak inflicted on a beloved princess. People wonder if the monarchy was capable of such callousness in hush-hushing Diana's pleas. Then is it not likely they concealed more? This suspicion bleeds into the quest for hidden affairs, as cynics reason that if such an infamous liaison with Camilla was first protected, then eventually revealed, maybe multiple others remain undisclosed. The comedic illusions of monarchy as a seamlessly dignified institution overshadow the memory that in the 1990s, public trust in the royals sank precipitously. If not for the lasting devotion many felt for the Queen or the young princes William and Harry, the monarchy might have faced existential crises. Some modern watchers turn to the more intangible domain of body language analysis. They comb through old footage of Charles at social events, scanning how he interacts with certain women rumored to be his close friends. Perhaps they notice a fleeting grin or whispered conversation that seems too intimate, or they parse official court circulars to see who accompanied him on lesser-known tours to out-of-the-way Commonwealth states. The comedic illusions overshadow a deeper attempt to see if the monarchy's illusions are undone by inadvertent signals. It's reminiscent of how people approach the question of Camilla's presence in official events prior to her formal acceptance. Small clues, standing a bit too near an unscripted gaze, might speak volumes. This phenomenon is not unique to Charles, of course. Royal watchers have historically dissected the entire House of Windsor's private lives. King Edward VIII's abdication over Wallace Simpson, Princess Margaret's heartbreak with Peter Townsend, Prince Andrew's humiliations, Each meltdown fosters a culture of curiosity, but Charles's labyrinth stands out for its length, complexity, and the ferocious media environment in which it played out. The comedic illusions of monarchy as a pure fairy tale, overshadowed by heartbreak behind the scenes, weigh heavily when it's the direct heir to the throne, caught in so many romantic tangles. We also see how the monarchy has, ironically, used the press to craft new illusions in the aftermath. Over time, official photographs or carefully curated interviews tried to cast Camilla as a supportive spouse worthy of the public's acceptance. That effort somewhat succeeded, culminating in the Queen's statement endorsing Camilla to be known as Queen Consort upon Charles's accession, a scenario unthinkable a decade or two earlier. The comedic illusions overshadow the heartbreak that older fans of Diana can't easily forget. Meanwhile, younger generations lacking direct emotional investment in the 1990s, wars between Charles, Diana, and the tabloids, might see it as a classic soap opera from before I was born. Yet they too remain intrigued enough to seek out the rumored lesser-known affairs, reading about Kanga Tryon or Lucia Santa Cruz as though unraveling the subplots of a long-running drama. In the vacuum left by official silence, we also find certain unauthorized documentaries or docuseries airing on smaller networks. They compile interviews with ex-staffers who claim to have seen a figure creep in or out at midnight. Some share comedic allusions about the prince's code name for Miss So-and-so was left pinned to a staff schedule. Yet these stories rarely progress to mainstream acceptance, overshadowed by the monarchy's robust denials or no comment. Critics of such shows argue that they rely on hearsay, rehashing old rumors without producing concrete evidence. Proponents retort that the monarchy's code of secrecy inevitably ensures that the real smoking gun, like letters or hotel receipts, remains hidden. The cycle continues. A new generation of royals rises to prominence, overshadowing the older era's controversies, but failing to extinguish them. William and Catherine, for instance, have proven popular, leading many to say that Charles's enthronement might be a transitional monarchy that eventually cedes the spotlight to William. If so, do the final revelations about Charles's hidden romances remain locked away, overshadowed by the monarchy's new emphasis on unity and modernization? Will historians decades hence glean from newly unsealed archives the existence of 3 or 4 more women who once shared intimate relations with Charles? Perhaps. Or perhaps the monarchy, skilled in self-preservation, has eradicated all trace. Thus we find ourselves at a nexus, the comedic illusions of monarchy as a fairy tale, overshadowed by heartbreak behind the scenes. Are we content with partial truth, gleaned from scraps of tabloid coverage and discreet confessions? Or do we yearn for a full expose that might only appear when official records are open, long after King Charles III's reign has concluded? The public's appetite suggests the latter. The monarchy's code of silence suggests we'll wait a very long time. For now, watchers gather in digital forums, relitigate the controversies, reevaluate the rumored paramours, and debate whether these undisclosed liaisons overshadow the monarchy's modern rebrand. Meanwhile, the monarchy remains an enduring institution, forging ahead with pageantry. King Charles III greets crowds in brand new contexts, overshadowed by the knowledge that once his romantic chaos nearly tore the monarchy asunder. At some point, the question arises, does the king himself reflect upon these liaisons with remorse or acceptance? In older interviews, Charles occasionally teased that he had grown from his mistakes, though rarely specifying which mistakes. He once told Jonathan Dimbleby in a mid-1990s authorized biography that he felt pressured to marry quickly, overshadowing his chance to pursue the woman he truly loved. For many, that was a veiled reference to Camilla. But does he now reflect on the possibility that other relationships might have been mishandled or overshadowed by his unwavering devotion to Camilla? We lack direct answers. The monarchy's approach never welcomed introspective confession about lesser-known romances, so the illusions remain comedic, overshadowing deeper truths. Glimpses might appear in offhand statements, as they did when Charles vaguely admitted to a youthful exuberance in his relationships, and the heartbreak behind the scenes. We know that Princess Diana endured intense suffering, culminating in a tragic death that forever changed how royals manage media. We also know that some of the rumored paramours faced their own hardships. Kanga Tryon's tragic end suggests a woman undone by the complexities of that orbit. Others, like Anna Wallace, might have avoided that meltdown, but carried bitterness at the unceremonious end of their engagement. The comedic illusions overshadow the psychological burden on each woman who dared become close to the man bound for the throne. In a sense, the monarchy's hush might have protected Charles from the public's condemnation, but it did little to protect these women's well-being. In the final reading, we see a tapestry of romances overshadowed by secrecy, comedic illusions overshadowed by heartbreak behind the scenes. The monarchy's self-preservation overshadowed the possibility of open acknowledgement, leaving multiple stories in half-states of rumor. King Charles III ascends, having carried that baggage for decades. The comedic illusions swirl, an older man now, with Camilla as queen consort, presenting a stable image of monarchy. Younger fans only see the comedic illusions in The Crown, or read the highlights from a scandal-laden 1990s. But for those who lived through the era or rummaged deeper, the memory of heartbreak, jealousy, rivalry, and undone illusions is not so easily overshadowed. They remain embedded in the monarchy's living narrative, an intriguing mosaic that may never be fully unveiled, but that resonates whenever the monarchy attempts to reaffirm its place in a changing world. And so, public memory remains potent. Curiosity undimmed, mysteries unsolved, comedic illusions overshadowed by the question of what else lies beyond. A question that perhaps only the monarchy's sealed archives or time itself can answer. At the conclusion of it all, we invite reflection. These 15 scandalous stories about King Charles III's hidden mistresses might be only a partial chronicle, a tip of an iceberg. They reveal a man shaped by an aristocratic upbringing that prized duty over personal happiness, overshadowed by an environment that ironically forced him into desperate quests for intimacy. They reveal a monarchy ill-equipped to handle the glare of modern media, and they underscore the swirling comedic illusions that turned each heartbreak into front-page mania, overshadowing any real nuance. For viewers of this epic drama, the final question is whether Charles's eventual ascension and the calm maturity he displays now can overshadow decades of romantic fiascos. Perhaps the monarchy's durability rests on the public's capacity to compartmentalize, to see the king in ceremonial splendor, ignoring the comedic illusions that once fueled gossip columns, overshadowing real tragedies like Diana's heartbreak. Or maybe these tales will forever remain a subtext, a cautionary message about how even the highest station cannot shield a man from the disastrous consequences of unfulfilled love, repeated betrayals, and comedic illusions that come with living a double life in the global spotlight. Either way, the monarchy's narrative marches on, newly crowned king at the helm, while these 15 scandalous stories echo in the background, a permanent testament to the complicated romantic legacy that shaped him.